What up? What up? What up? What up? Week 5 is upon us. This is uNIVERSITY, brought to you by uSTADIUM. I'm Zach Berman, and guess what? Week, for the first time, I'm bringing aboard my co-pilot, good friend of mine from the University of Missouri, somebody that I happen to think is one of the best in the business. This is Jonathan Lidskin. He's going to go by Liddy or whatever he so pleases. Jonathan, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before I start ripping on Maryland?
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Zach. I'm a sophomore at Mizzou. I met you through KCOU and the fraternity that we're both in. I'm a huge fan of college football, college basketball, journalism major, obviously. But I'm excited to be on here. Excited to talk some college football this morning.
Yeah, well, he's going to be my new co-pilot, your new co-professor, so to speak. So let's dive right in. It is week 5, and I'd say Statement Saturday, one of the best college football weeks you're going to have all year. But first, we got to dive into what happened Thursday night, because what is going on with Miami? Oh, my goodness.
This is a program that has taken a really deep dive. They've had one good year, really, since the beginning of this century. And that was 2017, a year they went 11-1 and lost the ACC championship and then lost the Orange Bowl. But then since then, it's been all downhill. They fire Mark Richt, and now it seems that Manny Diaz is on his way out as well as they fall to 2-3. This is a team that looks a lot better on paper than they do on the actual field, and that's not something that Manny Diaz is fixing right now.
Right, and to lose on a doink, and when that ball hit the upright, you can just kind of feel that, oh, that's the sound of Manny Diaz losing his job.
Yep.
Just not what I was expecting from Miami. I didn't think they were as good as their ranking suggested. I thought they were going to lose to Bama and then rebound with an easy schedule, but that was not the case. And Cane's now 2-3. Just a disaster. And I think a big part of Miami and why I don't think they're going to be good, really, dare I say, anytime soon. Who wants to play for a school that has no home field advantage?
Right. Mm-hmm. I've been a big proponent of get a stadium on campus. It's something that I feel like would help them tremendously. It's just like you watch their games. Even their big games, they don't fill the stadium. Like UNC last year wasn't close to filled. It's an NFL stadium 45 minutes away from Coral Gables, and students just aren't going to want to go, especially to early 11 o'clock games, especially to Thursday weeknight games. It's something that I feel like the university has the money to do, and it feels like that would help them with recruiting, that would help them with the home field advantage, like you mentioned. But right now, they're in some deep trouble.
Right. So Miami, they're clearly a dud. Now, you know who I thought was going to be a dud last night, and in fact, I was so confident in that to pick against them. The Iowa Hawkeyes, they went out to College Park and wound up demolishing Maryland 51-14 in a game where Maryland looked pretty good in the first quarter. And then all of a sudden, a 31-point outburst by Iowa in the second quarter. Talia Tungavailoa threw 5 interceptions. Maryland turned the ball over 7 times. It was that 59-zip game over Penn State all over again. Maybe I was wrong with the Hawkeyes.
This feels like a theme now with Maryland. They always have a really good September. People start to get their hopes up. You remember a couple years ago, they beat Syracuse badly week 2, who was coming off a 10-win season. And then the next week they unravel at Temple. And this felt like kind of the same. They go off to a 4-0 start. They get a great win against West Virginia. They beat Illinois to move to 1-0 in conference. And then in a game that people felt was kind of a trap for Iowa, you and I included, they just fall apart and completely unravel. And that's not anything against Iowa. They're a very good football team, but that was nowhere near the same Maryland that we saw in September.
No. And if you're the kind of guy like me that likes to look ahead to what's going on next, Penn State, Iowa next week. Oh boy.
Mhm.
That is going to be something else. And also regarding the ranked team round, BYU, a team that I have been quite high on, lost their starting quarterback, but still wound up winning. The guy
Yeah,
is now Baylor Romney. He's their new starting QB. And now he got knocked out too.
yep. This
So
is this is a
who's
BYU team that has been decimated by injuries this year, but continues to win. Jaron
it's David
Hall,
Conover. That's the new guy.
Jaron Hall was fantastic for them to start the year. Some were even saying he looked better than Zach Wilson when Wilson was in college, which is a huge testament to Hall. But this BYU team, their schedule's not easy. They're an independent team. They schedule a lot of Pac-12 teams. They already have wins against Arizona State and
Utah.
Utah in the Holy War. So this is a team that are sitting at 5-0, and if they can get healthy, they may have aspirations to play in a New Year's Six bowl game.
Well, here's my question, and this is something that was brought up in last week's show, is considering how good the quarterbacks have looked in Kalani Sitake's system, maybe that says that Zach Wilson didn't carry them as much as some people thought he did. And maybe it's just more of, okay, this is just a really well-coached, well-schemed football team.
Yeah, you watch Wilson and then you watch them this year, and it's just their quarterback development's unreal. Their designs are really good. Everything looks fluid with them offensively. And while Wilson may have the NFL traits that some of these other quarterbacks don't have for them, it's still a very well coached football team, like you said, and they keep winning. So they've lost one game right now in their last 15 games. This is a very good program, and a program to keep an eye out for years to come.
All right. On to today. And somewhere in the ether, we have those picks graphics up, and I was already 0-1 after going last week 5-1. My head-to-heads, and I'll begin with Georgia. I like Arkansas. I think they're an amazing story. I think Sam Pittman's done a wonderful job. I think they're only going to get better. I think they get absolutely smacked around.
I have never seen a defense like Georgia's defense. This team has given up, I think, one offensive touchdown with their first unit this year in 4 games, which is just incredible. I do like Arkansas. I picked them to beat Texas A&M last week. They're not at the level. They're not at the level of Georgia yet. This is a program on the rise. They're gonna win 9 games this year, even with their tough schedule. But I question whether they're even going to be able to score double digits today. Georgia's defense is just too good.
I agree, but at the same time, I'm going to take a step back on the Georgia defense because the big feather in their cap was, whoa, look what they did to Clemson. And now Clemson doesn't look so hot. So that's the one thing where I'm like, let's see what they do against Arkansas. Georgia doesn't get Ole Miss, but they'll get Florida and they'll get Auburn. We'll see what happens there. Notre Dame Cincinnati is going to be a fantastic football game.
I pretty much think this is an elimination game for the
which is what I said.
Notre Dame, they don't play conference championship. We know they're independent, except for last year where they played in the ACC. But because they're independent and they don't have that 13th data point, they pretty much have to go undefeated to make the playoff. And obviously that's the case for group of 5 teams. I think Cincinnati wins this game. I'm going to disagree with you on that. I really think that their line play is better, especially their offensive line. Notre Dame has a really young offensive line. They're inexperienced. And then the one I think the way Notre Dame wins this game is if Brian Kelly outcoaches Luke Fickell by a ton, which is very possible.
Could happen.
I think Cincinnati is the better quarterback play. They have the better line play. Secondary is about even. Both have first-round picks in the secondary. This is going to be a very good game, and I'm interested to see if Cincinnati can handle the atmosphere in South Bend.
This is the first time we've seen this elite Bearcat team play in an atmosphere like this.
Mm-hmm.
80,000 plus on the road in prime time on national TV. It's a tough task. I have the Irish. I think Notre Dame typically tends to pull these games out, and we've seen them have the ability to do so. They did it with Clemson last week.
Yeah, I mean,
give me the Irish, but do not be surprised if Cincinnati wins this game. And do you think if Cincinnati wins this game, they could make the playoff?
I've been thinking about this the last couple weeks. I had Cincinnati as my fourth playoff team going into the year, and the reason was they obviously have the schedule unlike a typical Group of 5 team. They play at Indiana, at Notre Dame, and they already took care of one of them. But I think the main reason I had them in the playoff is because if Georgia had beat Clemson, which they did, and everyone assumed Ohio State was going to beat Oregon, pretty much 2 conferences were going to be out by then, by the end of week 2. And so that left the SEC, Big 12, Big 10, and then Cincinnati if they finished undefeated.
And
so
boy, is that taking a turn.
There's your
12 is very in with Oregon.
Now the Pac-12 is still in it. We're at week 5. And so Cincinnati still needs a ton of help. I do think Oklahoma and Oregon probably both lose at some point this year. I don't think those teams are strong enough to finish a 9-game conference schedule plus a conference championship undefeated.
Oregon always has that game.
Yeah, and usually Oklahoma does too, and they might have it. Both Oklahoma and Oregon play on the road today. So this could be a seismic Saturday, as Reese Davis called it earlier. This week.
Saturday,
and so I think Cincinnati's in a good spot if they win today, but I think they still need some help.
Alabama and Ole Miss, points, and so many points. I have Bama. I would not be surprised if Ole Miss pulls the voodoo magic and comes out of Tuscaloosa with a win at all.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a really close game. Like you mentioned, really high scoring. I think one of the best bets of the day is to take Ole Miss over 30.5 points. I think they should sleepwalk to that. They pretty much score on command. I don't know if they're going to be able to get enough stops because their defense is massively improved. And what people don't realize is they run the ball a lot better this year. This isn't a Bama team, though, that is just going to line up with Najee Harris in the backfield and run the ball for 7 yards a carry against Ole Miss.
They don't have that.
They're vastly improved on that side. And the numbers won't make them look outstanding, but last year they were one of the bottom 10 defenses in the FBS. And this year I think they're around like between 54 and 58 in total yards. So while this team isn't elite defensively yet under Lane Kiffin, they're good enough to win this game. And I'm not picking them, but I think this game is going to be close, and I think it could come down to a last-second field goal, a last-minute touchdown, something along those lines.
I would agree with you. I think it's going to be a much, much, much closer game than your typical Ole Miss Bama game. Give me Alabama late. I think Bryce Young has his moment. But I think Matt Corral's going to have a game where people are like, oh, he's that good, isn't he?
Yeah, like, listen, if Ole Miss wins this game, Matt Corral's going to win the Heisman. I think people are pretty much in agreement about that. And what I think makes this even more interesting is if I think this is Bama's probably toughest game the rest of the year until the postseason, I'd say. And I feel like this Ole Miss team today, we could be looking at them at the end of the day and saying this is 2017 Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield. I think that's how good this team could be.
Right. So those are my head-to-heads. Let's go on to the against the spread picks.
Mm-hmm.
Boston College against Clemson, 7:30 tonight. There is no way in hell Clemson should be favored by 2 touchdowns against anybody the way they've been playing as of late.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you on that. Boston College is a good team. They run the ball very well. They have a possible first-round wide receiver in Zay Flowers. And even with Dennis Grosel playing and not Dracovic, they're still a solid football team, as we saw last week against Mizzou. They're
well coached.
They're 4-0. They now have aspirations to win the ACC with Clemson already having a loss. I think even at Clemson, this is going to be a dogfight, and BC should cover that 16 points with ease.
I think Jeff Hafley is a phenomenal coach. I don't even know how long he stays at Boston College, because if he keeps on doing this, he's going to get a bigger job.
Yeah, you see how he coached defense at Ohio State in 2019, and he goes to Boston College and he's doing much of the same. They almost beat Clemson last year with a worse and less experienced team. So I think Boston College to cover the 16 points is one of the best bets of the day.
I think Kentucky covers the +7 against Florida. I don't think Kentucky wins. There's a crucial difference. This game always comes down to like a field goal or something crazy at the end. I think Florida breaks their hearts like they do every other year. But don't sleep on the Wildcats. This is going to be a much closer game than, the fact that a team is ranked and a team isn't ranked would have you to believe. Will Levis and Chris Rodriguez, they're one of the toughest to stop duos in all of college football. At home, under the lights. Lexington's going to be nuts.
I think
Kentucky covers.
If you like running and you like running the football, tune into this one. There's going to be a lot of it. Florida and Kentucky, two of the best rushing teams, not only in the SEC but in the country. You mentioned Chris Rodriguez, who's just been unbelievable this year for them. And then you saw how Florida ran the ball against Alabama earlier this year. So every week on my show at KCOU, I pick an unranked team to beat a ranked team. Not only do I think Kentucky's going to cover, but I think they're going to win the game outright today.
Well, that would be amazing for that program if Kentucky knocks off Florida. Penn State, this is a revenge game for the Nittany Lions. Last year, they lost to Indiana in the worst possible way, and a call that I think should not have counted. Now the Hoosiers.
You're right. You're right. I do believe Michael Penix was short on the 2-point conversion. However, for the same reason I didn't pick a side in the Iowa game last night, it's kind of the same reason I didn't pick a line in the Penn State game today. I think this has potential to be a trap game. I don't think Penn State loses the game by any means. I think they're a much better team than Indiana, especially at home at night.
I don't think this is a trap game at all.
But
I see Penn State, almost their entire team is back from last year. I think the Nittany Lions are pissed off that they lost to Indiana the way they did. It's a stripe-out game under the lights at Beaver Stadium in Happy Valley. I think Penn State just demolishes them, wipes the floor with them. I think this is pure revenge.
Listen, I think the result in this game for college football would be exactly what you just said, setting up two really great wins from Iowa and Penn State before they play next week. But I could see Indiana hanging around in this game. Penn State really hasn't had a hangover game, trap game, anything like that yet. And they've played some tough opponents. So I think this is one that Indiana could hang around for a little and possibly cover the 10.5.
Right.
Which, by the way, I think it's up to 12 now.
Up to 12, yeah. I'm still giving Penn State the wiggle room there. And last but not least, people might have written them off when they got blown out by Ole Miss in week 1. I think Louisville has responded in a way where at Wake Forest, I think the Cardinals cover.
I think Scott Satterfield's a prime example of why you need to give coaches time. I think he's going to end up winning possibly 8 games this year. And you're right. That 7 points is a big number for two teams that we feel are pretty evenly matched. I know Wake Forest gets the game at home. They're well coached under Dave Clawson, and this is probably his best team there. But Louisville scores, and they score quickly. So I think this is a game that really could go either way. And like I said before, come down to the last moment. I think Louisville probably covers the 7.
All right, let's just go through the rest of the ranked games. I want you to give me 2 sentences each on what you think of each of these games. Michigan, Wisconsin.
Graham Mertz is the worst quarterback in the Big Ten. If Cade McNamara can throw the football even slightly well, Michigan will beat them.
I think ugly game. Wisconsin comes out fiery. That's more than 2 sentences. But I think Michigan wins. Louisiana Monroe at Coastal Carolina. Chanticleer's big.
Coastal Carolina doesn't have a lot of opportunities to move up in the rankings because of their schedule, but they've taken care of business every single week, and I think they continue to do so today.
Oregon at Stanford. Trap game.
Could be. Or Oregon is a really good team. They tend to play down to their opponents sometimes. They did for a while last week against Arizona. I think Oregon wins a very close and fairly low-scoring football game.
Stanford has always given them problems. I think we're past that. I still think it's a 31-20 game that's close for 3.5 quarters. But at the end of the day, I think the Duck pass rush is just too much. Oklahoma at Kansas State.
Oklahoma has lost to Kansas State the last 2 times they've played. We were not in a pandemic the last time Oklahoma beat Kansas State. So I think this one is going to be somewhat high scoring, but I think I like Kansas State against the number, but I think Oklahoma wins this one by a touchdown.
Ohio State at Rutgers. I like Rutgers. I love what Shiano's doing. I think Rutgers plays them close for a half. 41-20 Buckeyes.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there with you. I think Ohio State obviously a much more established and better program in the end, but you watched Rutgers last week against Michigan, and they did not look like a team that was bottom of the barrel for the last 10 years. They're a fiery defense. They play really hard. I think they hang in for a little while.
Louisiana Tech and North Carolina State. Trap game for NC State after beating Clemson. They're ranked.
Mm-hmm.
I can see Louisiana Tech giving them some problems. I don't know why. Tech is 2-2, but something about that.
Yeah, no, this is your ideal hangover game for NC State after beating Clemson and possibly getting the biggest win of their program history. I think Louisiana Tech getting 19 is a very good bet for today.
Mississippi State at Texas A&M. I think A&M, it's a tune-up game for them before Alabama. I think the Aggies win 3 scores.
I tend to agree. I don't think Mississippi State's very, very good at all. They kind of backdoored their way into a cover last week against LSU. And I don't think A&M can really overlook Mississippi State considering the way they've been playing. I think A&M gets ready, gets focused today, and they handle business.
Baylor at Oklahoma State. That is going to be a fun, under-the-radar game.
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle of like everything else going on, and it's 2 teams that are undefeated, so definitely a game to keep an eye on. I think Oklahoma State is more established right now. Baylor's got Dave Aranda in his second year. Still, even though they've won a couple of good games, have kind of figured things out. I think Oklahoma State is an under-the-radar, tough place to play at. I think they win this game probably by a touchdown to 10 points.
Too much offense on that Cowboys team. I think Spencer Sanders is pretty underrated.
He definitely has his moments. He's been one of the more inconsistent quarterbacks in that conference over the last couple of years. But
speaking of underrated quarterbacks, Peyton Thorne of Michigan State up against Western Kentucky. I think Sparty goes big, but are you buying high on the Mel Tucker train right now?
I am. Was very low on them to start the year. I'm very high on them right now. I think they're right in the middle of a very close Big Ten East race right now. And I think they could beat any one of those top 3 teams in the conference the way they run the ball. Western Kentucky's a tough team. They almost upset Indiana last week on the road. But I think Michigan State, after what happened against Nebraska last week, goes out and takes care of business today.
Number 22, Auburn at LSU, a de facto, if you win this game, you're ranked. If you don't, you're not ranked kind of game. Auburn always tends to have some weird bit of success against LSU. Give me Auburn on the road.
It's an interesting pick. Bo Nix, if he's playing, is terrible on the road. If not, TJ Finley's playing against his former team in LSU. But I like LSU here. I think they've kind of gone under the radar after losing to UCLA to open the season. A good UCLA team, by the way. And so I think LSU kind of shows tonight that they're still a good football team and should not be overlooked the rest of the way. I'll take LSU by a touchdown.
Speaking of UCLA, I actually think they're on upset watch late tonight against Arizona State. That is a prototypical Pac-12 after dark kind of upset, and I think the Sun Devils actually pull that one off at home or on the road in Pasadena.
There's two really weird times in college football, and it's weekday games and then Pac-12 after dark, it seems like. UCLA is a good football team. They had that tough loss against Fresno State, and then Arizona State, obviously, with that one loss to BYU. I think both of these teams are solid. I think both of these teams need this game if they want to make national notice, national headlines. I'll take UCLA in this one. I think they're the better team up front.
Speaking of Fresno State, it's safe to say my quarterback crush of the year has become Jake Haener.
He's playing his way into a potential first-round pick.
I love what Fresno State is doing. And you know who else loves it is Oregon, because all of a sudden you start looking back at that, and that might be a really big win for the Ducks by the end of the year.
Yeah, if you go through the 10 best wins in college football this year, Oregon beating Fresno State week 1 is on that list, in my belief. Fresno State, kind of a tricky game, having to go over the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii tonight. Really late game. I'd stay away if you want to bet this one, but I think Fresno State ended up pulling this out really close.
Things tend to go bump in the night at Hawaii. That's a good, actually, something to move on to. What are the 10 best wins that of all the college football teams, whole FBS, who's got them?
So I think the best win of the season is easily Oregon winning at the shoe. I don't think that's really a debate right now. They were a 14-point dog on the road and pretty much had their playoff hopes in the balance. And they go to Ohio State, a team that's made the playoff the last 2 years and hadn't lost a regular season game since 2018, I believe, when they lost to Purdue. So that was an unbelievable win for Oregon. I'm not sure we're going to get a better win the rest of the year unless Ole Miss beats Alabama today or someone beats Georgia. So,
well, I think my number 2 win of the year would actually be Arkansas over A&M.
I think so too. That was kind of you talk about program changing wins. That could be one for Arkansas.
Number 1 win of the year, Northern Arizona over Arizona on the road. I'd love to believe, but
I'm not sure Arizona's going to win a game this year. I hope with the way they played last week that they do, but I can't exactly say that a top 10 win is against a team that isn't going to win a game.
I still think Alabama beating Florida is a huge win for the Crimson Tide, because I think Florida is much better than a lot of people were led to believe this year.
And myself included, I was very guilty of thinking Florida had a down year. I didn't think Emory Jones was that good, but I didn't realize how well they'd run the football and how good their defense would be, especially after last year. It's vastly improved without a change of coordinator or anything. So, yeah, Bama going to the Swamp and winning week 3 was absolutely a top 10 win.
I mean, who else really had like impressive wins? Like you could say Iowa over Indiana and then Iowa State, but now neither of those look that impressive.
I think the way Iowa won those games were impressive though.
Turnovers.
They turn the other team over a ton. They take care of the ball. It's very Iowa-like the way they won those games. And this is supposed to be Iowa State's best team ever. So just going into Ames and dominating that game the way they did was so impressive.
Right. Oh, boy. Before I get into individual players, who wins the Mizzou-Tennessee game?
I think Mizzou does. I see a lot of people that like Tennessee against the spread and to win the game outright, but it's 2 prolific offenses, very, very high scoring. I think Josh Heupel is going to end up turning around Tennessee. I think he's their guy. I think it's just going to take him time. But I've been impressed with Tennessee the past couple weeks. They hung in the game with Florida for a little, and they scored points. So I think both of these programs are headed in the right direction. Mizzou obviously a little further along, so I think they win this game.
Mizzou is 0-4 against the spread this year.
I think they make it 1-4 today.
I think they go 0-5. I was bullish on this Tiger team to be an 8-win, 9-win team. I don't even think they even make a bowl because
I
that
think
defense is a black hole of suck.
I will say this. There is a better chance of Mizzou losing today or to South Carolina, one of the teams they'll be favored against, than them beating Florida or Texas A&M. So basically, there's a better chance of them getting upset by a team they're better than them winning a game they shouldn't.
I mean, I also do think this Mizzou team is capable of not having a great season yet coming out hot and catching someone on a trap game or a down week.
Yeah, I mean, they get Texas A&M.
We'll see with that.
They get A&M the week after that they play Berman.
Alabama.
So that could be an interesting one. But I think the way A&M runs the ball, they should take care of business in that one.
Let's shift to individual players.
Okay.
What players do you think are going to make names for themselves this week?
Well, the obvious answer is Matt Corral because he's got a road game, basically a chance to keep Ole Miss's playoff hopes alive, I should say. Prove to everyone that Ole Miss is a force to be reckoned with. They are one of the top teams in the country, so I think he's obviously the obvious name to watch out for today. I think another one is JT Daniels, though. I think today could be a game that kind of catapults him into the Heisman conversation. He didn't really have a good game against a good Clemson defense. They've taken care of business, obviously, the last couple weeks. Arkansas's defense under Barry Odom is good. So
it is good.
If he has a good game today, and don't forget, Georgia gets Darnell Washington back on offense today. So I think this could be the JT Daniels show today in Athens.
I think that I had someone on the tip of my tongue and I'm just completely blanking out. Oh, I think what you're saying is going to happen with Matt Corral. I think it happens with Des Ridder. I think today is the Des Ridder show in South Bend. Even though I still think Notre Dame wins the game, I think Ridder goes off. I think there are going to be a lot of NFL teams that are going to be interested in his services after today.
Desmond Ridder had that comment earlier this week. I think his OC told him, was like kind of telling him how loud it was going to be at Notre Dame Stadium. And Ridder just responded with like, yeah, it'll be quiet after a couple drives. And I hope this kid comes out and throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win today. I think that would be an unbelievable look for his NFL draft stock and an unbelievable look for the Cincinnati program as a whole.
Oh, no, I think the Bearcats, this is a huge, huge day for Cincinnati. But one of the things I always like to touch on is what I like to call the sizzle watch. Who's in the hot seat right now? And I think the obvious choice is Manny Diaz.
Mm-hmm.
But who do you think winds up on the hot seat or gets the dial turned up a little bit after this weekend?
Well, Mike Norvell loses to Syracuse at home. I think there's no question he's gone. I've been looking at the Florida State schedule. They have maybe 2 wins on the rest of their schedule. One of them is today against Syracuse, who I think is not a bad team, by the way. They beat Liberty last week. So
Syracuse is not a bad team at all.
I think Syracuse actually wins that game, and I cannot believe they're a dog today. But I think Florida State's really only win left on their schedule is UMass, who is probably the worst team in the FBS. So if Mike Norvell goes 1-11, he is gone. I don't care if it's only year 2. You cannot win 1 game in the ACC at Florida State.
I think Mississippi State, we're starting to get to that point where you're going to have to fire Mike Leach.
He's a terrible fit.
He's just not a good fit in the SEC.
Yeah, no, he like the air raid it doesn't work there. Like you need to play some sort of defense, despite the conference moving more towards offense. But like Mississippi State, their thought process when they hired Mike Leach was, we see how Bama and all these others, Ole Miss, they're scoring the ball now. We need to go do that too. But like it just like only playing offense in the SEC just doesn't work. Like you need to be able to play defense too.
Who else am I really bullish on in terms of being on the hot seat? Look out for Steve Adazio to get fired from Colorado State sooner or later.
He's a terrible coach. We know this.
We
Like
knew that though.
he should not have a Power 5 job, or not, or sorry, FBS job, I should say. Like today, I don't really think there's any like major like program changing firings at any school really. I think if Scott Frost loses to Northwestern today, like that would be a really bad look. But like at the same time,
Northwestern was not good. So
this coach firings develop as the season goes on.
Except if you're USC.
But USC, we knew they made a mistake not firing him last year and the year before. So I think they're kind of an exception to the rule, but I don't think this early in the season there's really like program changing, like, okay, this guy needs to go.
All right. 2 more questions. Who is the worst 4-0 team left in the FBS?
Oh, God, in the entire FBS?
Worst 4-0 team left. I'm looking around right now.
I'm scrolling through all the
UTSA?
teams. But like, are they not bad? They beat Memphis last week. Like, this is a very tough question. I'd say probably UTSA, just because they're a Conference USA team. Like they're not going to get much better than their win against Memphis this year.
They already beat Illinois.
Like yeah, like I guess so. Like their Army's better than them.
Army.
Yeah, I go UTSA. A good call on that one.
Who's the best 2-2 team in the nation? I think it's West Virginia.
2-2.
It's West Virginia. It has to be West Virginia.
I'm going to go West Virginia. They had a tough loss against Maryland. They had a good win against Virginia Tech. But I think you're right on that one. I'm thinking like I would take West Virginia to beat Clemson right now. I'd take them to beat UNC. Nebraska's 2-3. I'd take them to beat West Virginia to beat Nebraska. I think you're right on that one. West Virginia plays good defense. Neil Brown is really building something there. I think this program moving forward is in a really good spot with him.
All right. Last but not least, before we wrap things up, who wins the game of the year, UConn versus Vanderbilt, a game that you can get a ticket to for $1?
Yeah, I'm going to go Vanderbilt in this one. I believe they're a 2-touchdown favorite. UConn should not be an FBS team. They're a horrible program whose coach said that he was retiring at the end of the year, and then he left after that later that week. They're just in shambles right now and have no business being an FBS team.
$1 tickets. Part of me wanted to drive down to Nashville and go to that.
The evil part of you did.
Oh, yeah. I think I tweeted that the evil part of me wanted to, as soon as the Mizzou game ends, just go straight line to Nashville.
Okay.
But man, I was considering it where a hot dog is like triple the price of your game ticket. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you got anything else?
Real quick before you go. Vanderbilt is a program that needs to start running the triple option. They need to hire a coach that can run the triple option. Either Todd Monken at Army or Ken, I forget how to pronounce his last name, at Navy, but they need to try to hire one of those guys and run the option, because then you could go 6-6 every year and be competitive.
Yeah. All right. Before we go, Jonathan, where can we find you on socials, on radio stuff?
Yeah, so all my socials are Liddy121212. That's 3 12s after Liddy, Liddy. That's my Twitter. That's my Instagram. And then you can listen to me outside of here on KCOU Sunday mornings from 10 to 11. Me and my buddy Harrison Vatnick do a show called Start Your Sunday. All college football, all NFL. It's a really good show. I recommend you guys listen there. But I tweet throughout the day for college football. So if you want to follow my Twitter, that's probably the best place to go.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming aboard. I can't wait to get this going with you, and we will see you tomorrow. Make sure to like the stream, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, make sure to download the uSTADIUM app if you have not already. I'll be with y'all throughout the day, and I will see y'all tomorrow morning.